Hello everyone, and welcome to another week of Ubuntu Community Team Q&A. I'm David Planella from the Canonical Community Team, and I'm joined by Daniel Holbach and Michael Hall, also from the Community Team. As in every edition, this is a place where you can ask your questions, and we can try to answer to the best of our abilities. As before, feel free to ask any type of questions related to Ubuntu, to open source. If you've got some support questions, it might be better to direct them or to ask Ubuntu or to some IRC channels. So this is mostly about questions that you'd be interested to know more about, rather than trying to fix your PC. In terms of logistics, if you've got any questions, you should probably you're probably looking at ubuntuonair.com, and there you've got a chat widget, or you're using your IRC client to ask your questions. So remember always to prepend them with question in capital letters, so that we can actually track them and make sure that we can answer all of them. In terms of that, I'm just saying the first flow of questions, okay? In terms of the logistics, is there anything that I've forgotten, guys?
No, do we want to do any updates before we jump into the questions?
Yes, let's do it. I think, Mike, you might have some juicy updates here.
So this past weekend, I was at Scale 13 out in Los Angeles, California, where we had an UbuCon and an Ubuntu booth, and got quite a bit of traffic there. A lot of people were interested in the phones. George Castro and Marco Ceppi were there, and they had the orange box with them that they were showing off. I did want to say a big thank you to the Ubuntu California loco team. We had like 4 or 5 of them out there, and they really did a great job running the booth. They set it all up, they tore it all down. They were there all day, every day, running the booth. So that was excellent to have. I also want to thank System 76, who provided us 3 laptops to display there, and Tierra Tech, who provided us a fanless PC and a NAS storage box to show off. So we had a lot of great people helping out to make that booth a success. So big thanks to all of them. We also had some phones to show off, which people liked. We had 2 Nexus 4s on display, plus a couple of people's personal phones. My Nexus 4, Nathan Haynes from the California loco had a Nexus 5. And I think it was Ian who had also a Nexus 5 with Ubuntu on it. Plus we had 1 BQ phone. We had Stuart Langridge's BQ phone. He let us borrow it for the weekend to show it off. So thank you, Stuart, for letting us do that. I hope it made its way back to you safe and sound.
That's brilliant. I can imagine that you had like people around the booth looking at the phones all the time and wanted to buy them there, right?
Yeah, that was probably the top question for everybody who used the phone was, okay, where can I buy one? And unfortunately, they were all in the U.S., so there wasn't one that they could easily buy just yet. But for those who missed it, Christian Perino, in an interview a couple weeks ago, did say that we should have a U.S. phone on sale. We should have an announcement and information on that sometime in the next 6 months. So if you're in the U.S., you're not completely out of luck. You just have to be a little bit more patient than our European friends.
Excellent. And how did UbuCon, the event itself, go, Mike?
It was good. So Richard Gaskin, the one who organized it, did a really good job with the schedule. He got us a nice double room, which we needed because some of our sessions we still had people standing in the back, even though we had a doubly large room to do it in. He took really good care of all of us who were speaking to. So thank you, Richard, for all of that. And if you missed it, all of the all of the rooms had a camera and microphone in them to record the sessions. They're all up on the Scale website, which I don't have a handy link to at the moment. But I'll try and find that while we answer questions.
Excellent. All right. Okay, cool. Shall we just go with the questions, or is there any other updates do you guys think might be interesting for this week?
I would just say the usual. If you're interested in all the shows on ubuntuonair.com, just make sure you subscribe and circle and friend all the Ubuntu on Air accounts. So that's on YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else. So you stay up to date on all the shows that are happening.
Excellent.
And with the phone help app, we're not quite at the point yet where we can make an announcement, but just come and find me on IoT if you're generally interested in sharing your tips and tricks, so we can get that knowledge out to phone users around the globe.
Cool. Yeah. We're, as Daniel is saying, that's a good one. Actually, Daniel, we're working on a help app, and we welcome any contributions to the code, which is what we're working on right now. However, perhaps most importantly, we need the content as well. So any contribution to adding new content, as in adding questions or adding questions and answer, which would be the more complete version, would be really welcome. What we're trying to do is to make sure that that users, when they start their phone, they've got a set of essential questions answered for them, so they don't have to go looking around for that information. And we want to have them in their language as well. So this app will also be translated. So if you're a content creator, or if you've got any tips, or as Daniel is saying, if you've got any knowledge that you'd like to share about the phone, just ping Daniel or myself on IRC. It's the Holbach on hash Ubuntu app devel or DPM. That's myself.
Yeah. So far we've been working on putting the scaffolding together. There's been David, Nick, and myself. A few others have looked at the code as well. And so far what we want is what David just said. We want things to be easily translatable. We want to share content easily. So if you have any ideas, if you know a bit about web development, if you have ideas on how we could present a lot of these tips and tricks easily. For example, we're talking about maybe adding some animated GIFs. If you have other ideas, we're all ears. Because I noticed that it happens quite often. If you talk to other people who use the Ubuntu phone, people would say, yeah, I use this app, or this is how I do it, or present me with a nice and easy way to do something, and that's exactly the kind of content we want to get out to users.
Awesome. All right. Shall we look at the questions then?
Let's.
Did we want to talk about the porting guide? I think that came out after the last Q&A, didn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to do it, but I thought we've got 3 or 4 questions, or 3 questions. Perhaps we go through them and then comment the porting guide a bit later on. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Cool.
That's fine.
All right. So the first question, if I'm not mistaken, is from Nothing Much. Question: why is Microsoft involved with this snappy Ubuntu core thing? This is not the fact that Microsoft is involved with Snappy, but rather that we're collaborating with Microsoft on the cloud space. This is not something new for Snappy. You've probably picked up on Snappy being available on Azure. So that's essentially it. I mean, we're collaborating with Microsoft in the cloud space in the same way that we are doing with OpenStack and with other major cloud companies, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's really telling that even Microsoft has seen that users want Ubuntu, and if they want to be a player in the cloud space, then they need to make sure that they can support people who want Ubuntu, even if it's running on a Microsoft cloud.
All right, cool. So next question, again from Nothing Much. Question: are flash sales controlled by Canonical or just suggested by Canonical to the hardware manufacturers? Well, I'd say it's a joint effort, to be honest. What Canonical was working with BQ in this case was on a campaign for sale that was innovative, and that would not only create excitement about getting these new devices, but could help us watch how the sale develops. And that's why we came with this idea of flash sales, and also combined with the insiders, essentially a group of people who are well versed in phones, who know Ubuntu, have contributed to Ubuntu in one way or another, and who are getting phones in advance, and also being shared news in advance before they are shared publicly. They are helping us essentially spread the news about Ubuntu, as I say, in this innovative way. So we're working together with the hardware manufacturers on this. Okay, another question from Galaxy123. How can I install Ubuntu Mobile on Galaxy S3 Mini? I'm not sure if there's a port available.
Yeah, I think the first thing you need to do is find somebody who's made a Cyanogen port for that device and see if they will create you an Ubuntu port.
Cool. All right, and with this, as we've mentioned before, we'll expand a bit more on the porting guide in a minute. I just wanted to go quickly through the first questions that we had, but I see that there's more and more coming up. All right. Michael Flash is asking, I have a question about the tray icon in Unity.
Right, so I got a little bit of clarification from him on that.
All right. I'll let you take it then, Mike.
Yeah, he's got an app that's written in C++ using Qt, and it has a tray icon that it's not putting in the right place. And what I suspect happened is that it's using the old XDG tray icons, which we haven't supported in a while now. So Mixail, several years back, we started using application indicators for the top panel, which are a much simplified version of the old tray icon spec. And for a while we supported both, but a year or two ago we dropped support entirely for the old style tray icons. So what I suspect is that your app is still using the old way of doing it, and it's just trying to put an icon somewhere that we don't support. So what you should be doing is using the app indicators to do that, and that's supported in both Unity and KDE, so it should work in both of those.
Great. All right. Next one is from J. Daisy Kanan. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. Question: how are you all trying to improve accessibility? I am a legally blind user who is interested in going all Ubuntu and Compass full screen. Zoom does not cut it. It does not zoom into the menu bar and launcher. I'm not really an expert in accessibility, but one thing that I should mention is that now that you're mentioning Compass, we're actually moving away from Compass. We're going the convergent way with Unity 8 and QML and Qt technologies, which should improve accessibility as well. In terms of the roadmap for accessibility, I don't have much knowledge, or I'm not very familiar with with it. But one thing that I can do is, if you're pointing bugs such as the one whereby you need screen zoom, this is something that we can forward to the Unity 8 team, and also we can find out more and share about the roadmap for accessibility.
And maybe that's also something we should discuss at the next online summit. That might be a good place to talk about it and collect ideas.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, and until then, I mean, until we have Unity 8 on the desktop, I just had a look at Ask Ubuntu. There seem to be some answers on magnifier technologies, so I hope that's going to help.
Yeah. All right, so next question for, again, from Jay Destikainen. How will the mirror transition affect the desktop in the future versions? I'm not sure I can quite understand the context. I mean, what I can say from very high level and from someone who's not very familiar with display servers is that Mir allows us essentially to run the display server on mobile devices, and will allows as well to do the convergence. So essentially, what we're doing right now is we're working on the Unity 8 session to be the default. I think we were saying by 1604 on the desktop, and Mir is one of the technologies that will help us assessing that. Implementing that. But yeah, I mean, perhaps Daniel or Mike, you might be more knowledgeable on the display server than I am.
I just wanted to say, when you ask your questions, the more specific you can be in the question, the easier it will be for us to answer. These kind of big, general questions, it's hard to know what exactly information you're looking for.
Cool.
Yeah, essentially what David said, Mir's working its way to the desktop. We're building out desktop features in Unity 8. It'll be there when it's ready, and we still hope that that will be by 1604.
All right, and yeah, I mean, remember to prepare your questions with questions. Otherwise, there's a bit of conversation on the RSC channel, and it's easy for us then to spot them. So there's another question, but I think we're missing a bit of context there. So I'd say let's wait until we get to know some more about the actual question, and then we can take that. All right, and in the meantime, I think then we will just quickly talk about the porting guide and about something else that David Cully, our technical writer in the community team, has been creating these last few weeks. We finally got a landing page for the Ubuntu for Devices page, which is pretty cool. It gives you all of the information that you need to get started with Ubuntu on a mobile device, and points you to the next steps on how to get started installing Ubuntu on your phone or tablet. It also talks about convergence and essentially parts of what we've been discussing during the Hangout already. So do check out that page. I think it's much more useful than the blank page that we used to have for a while. So do check it out and check the links. Most importantly, that page takes you to the new revamped porting guide, which I'm just pasting right now on IRC. Again, this has been the work of David Calais and many other people from the community and from Canonical. I might forget someone, but I know that that Riccardo Solvetti, Oliver Graubert, Gianni Monoses, and Sergio Chekhov have been working on the porting guide. Also, someone from the community who I cannot remember the name of right now, who had been working on the Nexus 5 port, was really helpful in creating parts of the porting guide. I mean, not only helpful, but I mean the fact that the Nexus 5 port is still alive and kicking. It's really awesome. So kudos for that. So yeah, essentially the porting guide is something that that you can use whenever you want to port Ubuntu to a new device. Someone was asking about the Galaxy S3 earlier on. So if someone wanted to make Ubuntu work on the Galaxy S3, would go to the porting guide and follow the instructions to create that port, to build that image, and then either provide that image somewhere online or provide an image server where people can just do over-the-air updates. You'll see that the guide looks much nicer than before. We moved it from the wiki to the website, so you can also look at it on your mobile device. The layout is just phone oriented now, and it's also much more visual than the previous one, where it shows you diagrams on how the whole Ubuntu stack works. So yeah, I mean, I'd say if you're interested in porting, to check it out, to check out the list of ports that are available. You might want to contact previous porters to see if they are aware of the guide and if they're working on a new port for your device. And if you got any questions about the porting guide, there's a section at the end which directs you to everywhere where you can get help. So yeah, I mean, just to say, I mean, good work everyone involved in creating the new porting guide. It's just looking amazing right now. So that's it, the new porting guide for you guys.
And not really related, but also published last week was the new app design guide. So if you go to design.ubuntu.com/apps, the design team has been working on updating this to the new QML components and reworking of the QML components that's been going on over the last cycle. So that's up now, and you can get some better information there. All right, shall we go back to the questions?
Yeah, but I think the next one was about the colors on the phone, like the background and everything, and how that could be changed. I mean, you can change the background, right? But there's no theming capabilities yet.
So each individual scope can define its own background color. If they define it to use a transparent background, you'll see the same gray kind of origami image that you see on like the app scope. So the app scope and the other default scopes technically have transparent backgrounds, and what you actually see is the image of the dash itself. There is discussion about being able to replace that background image on the dash with something custom that the user wants to use. The concern there is making sure that you'll still be able to read the text and all the other UI components on the different scopes. So if right now you changed it to a dark background, you wouldn't be able to read anything that's on there. So they need to figure out how to handle that reliably before that can happen.
Okay. Just trying to find the next question.
Nothing much had asked, why did you guys use Compas for Unity during its inception? So, if you remember back before Unity, we were already using Compas with the GNOME 2 panels. And that was working really well for us. Everybody seemed to like the desktop effects. And when we started doing Unity, we knew we wanted to use OpenGL and 3D acceleration for that. And Compas made that really easy for us to do because it was already using all of the OpenGL context and buffers and everything. So instead of redoing all of the work that Compas had done, we decided to just leverage what was there and build on top of it.
Okay, so I think the next one is from Patrick. Question: can I install the Ubuntu OS on the Android version of the Aquarius E 4.5 by myself? I think there's something that you'll have to try when we publish the images. I think it might work technically, but this is something that will probably not be supported. In any case, what's important to know is that the Ubuntu images for BQ phones will be available online, most probably on the BQ site. In any case, they are available already right now using the from the channels, but they will be available in a more easily discoverable URL.
Yeah, I know that they had to change the front glass for the Ubuntu version of the phone to get rid of the Android button overlays. I don't know if there are any other hardware changes. So if they had to use a different screen or something, then the stock Ubuntu image may not work quite right on the Android hardware.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to talk to the BQ folks, just send them an email or check on their website, because they will know for sure.
Yeah, I think in these cases it's best to as Daniel is saying, is best to talk to the manufacturers, and as Mike was saying, yeah, beware of hardware incompatibilities. So it might work, but it will probably not be supported.
All right, JD, I'll just use that, asked, when will we get Unity 8? So if you have a phone, you already have Unity 8. That's what's running on our phone and tablet images. If you're asking when you will get it on the desktop, there is currently a preview session you can install to try it out on the desktop. That's been around since the last release, and it will be there up until we're ready to make it the new default. So if you want to try it out, you can do that. There's also the Ubuntu Next ISO, which will boot a live instance using Unity 8. So if you want to try it out without installing anything, you can go that route. As for when you will get it as the default, that's going to depend on when it's ready. As we mentioned earlier, we're still targeting the next LTS for that. All right, Cool Guy says he found an image or an article on Linux Today related to the 2038 bug. Someone has to think this is important, or it wouldn't have been written about. Is Canonical or Ubuntu concerned about this at all? So for those who aren't familiar with it, the bug is that the 32-bit variable that's used to store date values can only count up until sometime in the year 2038. And after that, it'll start throwing bugs because it's going to wrap back around to 0 and screw up a bunch of stuff. But again, that's only for 32-bit. I believe all of the 64-bit apps are not going to be affected by this, and hopefully by the year 2038, there will not be anybody still using 32-bit versions of Ubuntu.
Yeah, a quick look at the Wikipedia page, and it seems like they say that this might be a problem for some embedded devices. So, but yeah, let's see what it's going to be like.
Yeah, that's still, what, 23 years into the future.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot can change in that time. But yes, it is thought about. It is fixed. technically in the way that it can be fixed.
There's also a Wikipedia page about the year 10,000 problem, whatever that is. So if you enjoy a bit of light reading, might do that later on.
We might have to address that. I think by that year, that sounds like the year of the Linux desktop.
Yeah. Maybe like 2037 is going to be the year that people go looking for old retired C developers the way we did old retired COBOL developers back in 1999.
Oh man.
So we've all got that to look forward to.
Yeah, we might run out of animal names.
Yeah, I think that's more critical. Like, we'll probably have to start with double objectives for animal names. All right. Okay, I think we have missed one question. I'm not sure. Let me know, guys. JD was asking, question: will Unity 8 work better with high DPI displays? Is that one that we answered already?
No, it isn't. But the answer is yes, absolutely, it will. Unity 7's already gotten quite a bit of work to work well with high DPI displays, but that's just for Unity 7. The apps themselves don't necessarily take advantage of that. But both Unity 8 and the new Ubuntu UI toolkit itself have high DPI support baked into it from the beginning. So all of those will work and look really good on high DPI.
Cool. All right. Next one I think is from Quertis. Does the phone get shipped next week? Good news is that actually shipped. Okay. I think what you're asking here is when a user will actually get the phone in their hands. According to the VQ site, when you went in order to your phone, devices will be shipped in sometime in March. There is no particular date set, but I think the rule of thumb figure was that the people would get them in their hands 3 to 4 weeks after having ordered them. And for those of you who are not familiar with how these devices are being sold, we're using this concept of flash sales, where we announce just shortly before a sale is up, and then these devices are put online for people to get them in their hands, essentially. The first ones went too well, and the first one we were even too successful, where the number of requests just killed the server several times, and so far all of the sales have been successful, in which we have sold out all of the units. So stay tuned for the next flash sales on Ubuntu, on the Ubuntu Google Plus account, and on Facebook and on Twitter as well.
All right. UbuFan asks, will Nexus 4 have NFC? Are there plans to activate it in Ubuntu Touch? Do either of you guys know if there's plans for that? Because I don't.
No, I don't know. I know that there's the question came up a while ago on the mailing list, on the phone mailing list, but I think NFC hasn't been a priority, so we don't really have an API. I mean, probably there's a Qt package or a Qt API that already supports this, but it might need some work. So yeah, in the meantime, let me see if I can find the message on the mailing list, if I can provide some more context.
Okay, Rockin asks, what Ubuntu version do I need to use to develop scope and to see it working on the emulator? Actually, on Ubuntu 14.04.64 64-bit, the emulator doesn't seem to show scope well. I don't have Aquarius Ubuntu yet. You should be able to develop apps and scopes on any supported version of Ubuntu for the desktop. So 14.04, 14.10 should both work, especially since you're doing it in the emulator. So as long as your emulator targets the right version of Ubuntu for phones, that should all work. I would recommend deleting your emulator and recreating it, because sometimes they get out of date and things stop working. If it's still a problem for you after you do that, go into hash ubuntu-app-devel and ping bzoltan, and he will be able to help you out to debug that problem.
Cool. Yeah. What I would add as well is that I would still recommend to move to 14.10, to Ubuntu 14.10 for scope development. As Mike is saying, you should be good to go with any version starting from 14.04 if you're using the emulator for scope development. However, on 14.10, there's additional support to run scopes and test scopes directly from the desktop without using the emulator, which speeds up development. But yeah.
The key really is to make sure that you're always up to date, because the SDK is being improved on all the time. So make sure that you have the PPA installed and that you're running apt-get update and upgrade fairly frequently.
Cool.
Just Caracas asked, will there be some fallback on high DPI screens for apps that don't support it?
No idea.
No. So I know apps that use the Ubuntu UI toolkit will support it. Apps that use Qt 5 should support it natively also. I don't know about GTK, but I would assume that GTK 3's got high DPI support available also. So it may just be old legacy apps that don't, but I don't know if we're going to have a fallback for that. Oh, we missed one from Systrum, who was asking about being able to move data from the desktop to the phone, so things like contacts and pictures and stuff like that. What currently works is syncing with Google for contacts and calendar, and we've got a photo scope that will pull it from different sources like Flickr and Instagram. But as far as like file syncing support, there isn't anything built in right now. And since we've stopped doing file sync with Ubuntu 1, you're going to need to use a third-party provider for that. We do need to work with people like Dropbox to make sure that they can provide automatic background syncing on Ubuntu phones, because currently with the restrictions that we have on apps, that wouldn't be possible for them. There is, however, a Dropbox client which will let you upload and download files individually from your Dropbox account, so you can have that at least right now. It's called UDrop Cabin, and it's really nice. I use it all the time.
Excellent. I use it too as well, by the way.
All right, the next question is from Ubuntastic, which is a fantastic name, by the way. Will there be a port of Viber available for Ubuntu Touch? So anytime there's a question about will this app be available on Ubuntu Touch, the best thing you can do is go to the developers of that app and ask them for it. The more people that come to them and say, you know, we want an Ubuntu Touch version of your app, the more likely they are to build one. So as far as I know, there is not one currently available. So you should go and you should ask them for one. If they've already got a desktop version, then chances are they'd be able to make one for the phone. All right. Coortis asks, could you give some information about why you are using flash sales? Wouldn't it be more profitable if you satisfied the demands? David, do you want to speak to this one?
Yes, as soon as I manage to unmute myself. Okay. All right. So yeah, we've mentioned it somehow in the earlier on in the call. Essentially, we're not trying to. I mean, it's in the nature of Ubuntu and Canonical to be innovative and to lead the way. And we're doing exactly the same thing with not only with the phone but also with the phone campaign. So that's why we decided not to just put the phones on sale for people to get at the store, but rather to make sure that we create expectation and excitement about getting an Ubuntu phone. It's something that's very special for us at Canonical, who have been working on it for the last couple of years, and it really needs to go out with a flash, essentially. Also, one thing to mention as well is that these phones are targeted at someone who knows what Ubuntu is and who knows what they are getting. So this is a way to make sure that that if you're purchasing a device, you know exactly what you're getting. An Ubuntu phone is something that you can use for daily usage. It's got lots of awesome apps that you can use as your day-to-day apps, essentially. But there are things which are not yet there or have alternatives. So, for example, instead of WhatsApp, we've got Telegram, which, if you ask me, is even more awesome than WhatsApp. But that's sometimes a personal preference. We also want people to know when they're getting an Ubuntu phone what scopes are and what they're getting. It's not the traditional app script, but it's this new whole concept of getting content at your fingertips, as we're saying on the launch campaign. So yeah, that's why we've decided to launch these flash sales and also this little game that you get to play when you actually buy before you buy a phone, so that you know how the Ubuntu phone works and again what you're getting. So it's not as much as getting more profit initially. It's the first time that we are launching a phone, and again, we want to be innovative. We want to make sure that people are aware of what they're getting, and we want to have good visibility and good track of the phones that are shipping. So these were the main reasons for this flash sale. Okay, Ubuntu fan is asking, can we expect an RTM version update this month? The last one was in January. I'd say yes, expect one very, very soon. I don't have the dates off the top of my head. I'm not sure if Daniel or Mike have got the actual dates. I mean, we keep them in milestones as milestones in Launchpad, but I don't really have it right now.
So Lucas posted on, I think, the phone mailing list that should be coming this week. So there's an RC build that's gone through QA and passed, and everything looks good there. But because the next release on the RTM channel is actually going to be the first over-the-air update that people with the BQ phones get, it's going through some additional QA to make sure that it's rock solid and that nobody's going to have any problems with the update. So that's why that one's taking a little bit longer, but it's planned to be released this week once that's all finished. All right, is that all the questions that we have so far? Kind of looks like it. If we missed any of yours that you asked, feel free to ask them again now, because that's the end of the list that I've got. And if you have any new questions based on some of the answers we've given or updates, please ask them. We've got, 10, 15 minutes left in this broadcast?
Yep.
There you go, 2 questions at once.
Ubuntastic asked, do you plan on making sync with Rhythmbox possible? So I don't know about through Rhythmbox. It's actually been a very long time since I've used Rhythmbox. But I know the easiest way to get your music on the phone is to just plug it into USB and copy files over into the music folder.
Yeah.
From there, the media scanner will pick them all up and load them into the music app for you.
Exactly. Or you can, as we mentioned before, you can use your if you're a Dropbox user, you can use your Dropbox cabin and sync your music in there, or rather download your music in there.
Yeah. What I don't know is whether or not you can copy over like playlist files. I don't know if that will work.
I think that's going to be. I think that's going to be interesting. I can imagine that once the phones get out there, a lot of people are going to sit there and think, okay, I want to sync this data over, and then figure out how to do it and write scripts or small apps for it. So I look forward to all the innovation that's going to be happening there.
Indeed.
All right. It's over 9,000. Asks, when will we see Ubuntu on a Samsung or HTC Motorola, maybe? So we have no real idea when that will happen. One of the issues with that is that for big companies like that, whenever they come out with a new phone model, they really have to sell millions of that particular model in order to, break even on it. So that it's a big investment for them no matter what they do. That's also part of the reason you tend to see less innovation out of big companies than you do out of small ones. So I think once Ubuntu has proven itself and establishes a market, and those companies are confident that they will be able to sell millions of them, then we might see some of them start to come on board.
Cool. All right, the next one from UOA. How about Spotify or some third-party version in Ubuntu phone? Again, I'll just refer to what Mike mentioned earlier on. If you want to see those big names apps on the phone, the best thing is to request the developers or to tell the developers that you're interested, that you've got an Ubuntu phone and you'd like to see them you'd like to see their apps in there. So that your voice is heard and they know that there's an interest in importing to Ubuntu. That said, for the very particular case of Spotify, I think you can use. I'm not a Spotify user, so take this with a pinch of salt. But I know that there's a client for Ubuntu phone called Qt Spotify that you can actually use already.
Yeah, the problem with Qt Spotify right now is that it can't continue playing music when it's in the background. So for the regular music app and any other app, if they can provide a file to the media player service, then they can continue playing even when the app's in the background. But because Spotify uses a streaming protocol, that's not something that can be handed off currently to the media hub. So that's a limitation on the Spotify app right now. Hopefully we'll be able to extend Media Hub to support that. Lots of questions coming in now, right at the end. You guys always wait until right at the end.
All right, Nothing Much is asking, who's worse, Apple or Adobe? I personally think Adobe, he or she is mentioning. I don't know, I don't think of companies in terms of them being bad. I think both of them have provided innovation in their areas, even if they're done in a different way. I mean, I still think the open source model is the way to go, and free standards as well. I just think they follow another model. So I might not be in agreement with some of their policies or their practices, but I wouldn't call one worse than the other. I don't know. Do you guys think?
I'm not a customer or consumer of either, so it really doesn't matter. It's kind of like asking me, which do I like better, Ferraris or Lamborghinis? It doesn't matter. I don't have either one.
All right. What about you, Daniel? Do you have a Ferrari?
No, not really. And I don't know in which sense this question might be really helpful. I don't know. Right. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
I'm running 1409 V15 on my Nexus 7, and it doesn't have a native calendar or native email app. I was kind of surprised by this. Does the PQ Aquarius E45 edition phone come shipped with these most basic, in my opinion, native apps, or do we have to download them from the Ubuntu store also? If they don't ship with the phone, do you know where the decision was made to cripple the amount of apps right out of the door?
So the
That's a
decision
long
certainly
question.
wasn't to cripple anything. And as there are these native apps in the store that you can install. It's just a choice by the company, what they want to include by default. I know the calendar app has gotten quite a bit better very, very recently. So it could just be that at the time they were looking at which apps to include, it wasn't doing what they wanted it to do quite enough.
Yeah. The issue with the calendar app at the time where we decided or we were discussing the inclusion was that it wasn't it wasn't the calendar app itself which wasn't working or didn't meet any standards. It was the syncing, the background syncing of events and unrelated to calendar of contacts as well. Also, there was a concern on the design of or the looks of the calendar app. But the good news are that first of all, that was a few months ago. The developers of the calendar app, who are community contributors, addressed all of the points that had to do with design, meaning that the calendar looks fantastic right now visually. And also, the really good news are as well that a couple of weeks ago, the syncing issues with the platform APIs got addressed as well, and calendar has been proposed again for inclusion on the developer image, meaning that even though it's in the store already, by the way, I should have mentioned this, the calendar is on its way of getting included by default. In terms of a native email app, the good news again is that there is a native email app. It's just not installed by default. It's called Deco, and it's an app that works very well already. It's very attractive also visually. However, at the time when we were working with the other core apps and on the decision on which apps would be included on the developer image and on the commercial images, Deco was still a bit of a young app. It has improved hugely in the last few months, and I'm sure if everyone helps us testing it and giving us feedback and us getting more usage of the app, that will motivate developers as well, who again are volunteer contributors to work on the app. And if you are a developer yourself, just feel free to ping Poppy, probably on IRC. He's on the channel right now, and he'll direct you to how to contribute to Deco, the native email app.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. Well, the app got on in the last few weeks. It's just amazing. And if you're really interested in email and what's happening with the app, install the beta app, because there's also a beta version of it, so you get all the latest updates. Just great to see. Right. Next question from Just Caracas. Aren't decent devices key to establishing a market? So I'm not quite sure what you're alluding to. I think the first Ubuntu phones, they're absolutely fantastic. I would totally call them decent.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people compare it to flagship devices, but you got to remember that there's still a lot of non-flagship phones being developed and sold. And even if you look at Samsung's line, they've got way more phones than just the Galaxy line that still sell and sell well. So there's still a big demand for these mid-range phones, and comparing it to the latest, Nexus or Galaxy S6 is really kind of missing the point there. I played with the BQ phone. It works well. It's not laggy or slow or anything, and it it's better than like when Firefox first shipped on their first handsets. Those were really underpowered for what it needed to be. But BQ's not like that, and the phone works really well.
Yeah. What I wanted to say was that I don't think that the majority of phone buyers are usually the ones who go for the the best equipped high tech devices. I think there's a lot of people who just want a very secure phone and just for the most basic things to work, like what people mentioned earlier, email, calendar, and so on. I think those are far more important than a few very vocal ones who request the newest high-tech devices, but I'm sure we're going to get to the high-tech devices as well.
Yeah, the other thing to mention as well is that these devices have got a really good price for what they offer as well. I think it's 169 euros for a phone that's compact, that works well, and it's powerful enough to do everything that you want in a phone as a regular user.
That's one.
All right. Talk is asking question: will Ubuntu make Shuttleworth voice assistant? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of the commands that you put in there. I don't know. Sudo make. I don't know. But yeah, it's a suggestion. It'd be nice to have a Mark Shuttleworth head on the phone, and who you could command. So might be an idea for an app.
It might be our version of Clippy.
Oh my! That would be the demise of Ubuntu. All right. Okay, let's just go quickly through questions. We've got about 3 minutes. Z123 is asking, how can we get Google Hangouts and Google Drive docs when the SDKs are closed? Group Sharp is good on Uphone. I'm not sure I can get the context on that one.
So it's a good point that services that don't have an open API are going to be much harder to support, just because it means there's only one group that can write an app for it, and that's the one that controls the API. So it's something to consider when you pick a service to use, whether or not their API is open and available for third-party developers or not. If it's not, then you're just kind of limiting yourself right from the beginning. That said, hopefully we will get apps for Hangouts and Google Drive and whatnot once Google decides that they want to do that.
Cool. Yeah, and that's also the point of using open source in general. I mean, not only Ubuntu, but well, open source and open standards, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, Talk is asking, now that you made a phone, when will you make a watch? Let's face it, you will. All right. So why? And I'll ask you a question, but why limit ourselves to a watch? I mean, you probably heard the announcement about Snappy and the Internet of Things, which is essentially the core of Ubuntu. Supporting the same mechanism of transactional updates as the Ubuntu phone. So I'd say it's not that clear that Ubuntu will make a watch, but it is clear that Ubuntu will be ubiquitous in the devices ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, you've seen the Snappy announcement. We're working with lots of different partners in lots of different directions, but still with a focus on a system that's going to be convergent, and on a system that's reliable, that's modular, and that's very secure. So these are really interesting times for Ubuntu.
All right.
All right. Just Caracas mentioned, I think, a follow-up to his earlier question, that he compares the BQ phone to a Nexus 4, which is rather old, and he doesn't see it as an upgrade. So you're right that it is comparable to the Nexus 4, and the Nexus 4 is a couple of years old now, but the Nexus 4 was pretty high-end when it came out, and it's still more powerful than a lot of Android phones that are being produced and sold. So again, it's just a matter of perspective. People who are used to high-end or flagship phones are not going to see BQ as, you know, being a top performer. But people who have been going for the lower-end smartphones and the more, you know, the ones, at least here in the U.S. market, that you tend to get for free on contract, it's still going to be a good quality phone for them. It's going to be right in the range that they're looking for. Right. Sit Ubuntu Sit, good dog, asks if the Today Scope is going to be in the store, and Popey said he's going to chase that down. But from what I have been told, yes, the plan is to get those scopes that are on the BQ phone in the store. It's just a matter of working out the logistics right now. All right, and the last one, and we're out of time, so it will be the last one, is from Talkie. How much information does Canonical, I think he means gather, from our devices? Very little. I mean, we can get bug reports, I think, if you have that enabled. So in the privacy settings, you can have you can decide whether or not you want to send automatic bug reporting to Ubuntu or not, so that we can fix things that break. But you know, for the most part, we don't get much information.
Yeah, and
we know when you download an app from our store because you're connecting to our store to download it.
yeah, and one thing to mention as well is that that things like bug reports, the data that they send is anonymized as well.
Yeah. All right. That's all the questions we have.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot,
Thank you, everyone on IRC, for coming and bringing those great questions.
Cool. All right. So see you next week at the next hour for the next Q&A. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.